Welcome back to the Neon Arcade for the complete Cyberpunk 2077 lore and history. This is part 2 of a likely 2-part series. You will find part 1 in the pinned comment, but since this isn't a straight up timeline video, you can watch either part in whatever order you prefer. Again, this is a distillation of the Countdown to the Dark Future series, which highlights the most important parts of Cyberpunk's tumultuous history, events, people, and tech. As per feedback from the first episode, there will be breaks in between sections, but feel free to hop around using the timestamps on the video timeline as well as in the description. In part 2, we're going over the blossoming megacorporations, vehicles and superfuel of the future Chew-2, Nomads, the Nomad nations and their history, Johnny, Alt Cunningham and the Soulkiller, Night City's districts in 2020, Bioware and body sculpting, the Eurodollar and payment methods in the dark future, the data crash, the Fourth Corporate War, and much more. Economic, political, and environmental factors have made a number of changes in the vehicular engineering of the dark future. For example, most commercial vehicles run on Chew-2, a biofuel synthesized from genetically modified wheat. While better for air quality than gasoline, the switch to Chew-2 wasn't made altruistically. The rising price of oil has made petroleum an unfeasible fuel source for the average consumer. Another innovation, neural interfaces via cyberware allow some cars to be upgraded for partial or even full mental control. In 2020, such vehicles are rare as the cost of the upgrade package is steep. As of yet, no manufacturer has really released a fully cyber-driven vehicle as a standard model. Perhaps the biggest innovation in the transportation in the dark future involves air travel. Early research into vertical takeoff and landing, otherwise known as VTOL technology, proved fruitful and has developed over time to allow a new class of vehicle, the AV. These flying cars replace wheels with jet turbines, allowing them to operate in the tight glass canyons of urban environments. Still expensive, AVs are usually owned by governments, corporations, and the extremely wealthy. They've become a standard vehicle for corporate security as well as emergency services such as the trauma team. Owning one of the newer, smaller luxury models of AV is seen as a status symbol among the ultra-elite. Not every road vehicle out there is built for extreme durability or speed. There's still plenty of room on the market for a cheap, reliable ride, including electric cars. Originally a creator of timepieces, Kuroshi only found true success after they launched an orbital factory and became the world's leading designer of high-quality optics. Gibson Battle Gear does one thing and one thing well, creating clothing and accessories for use in life-risking situations. Gibson is most famous for their Battle Gear line, which offers well-tailored, stylish, and armored clothing that appears as normal street, leisure, or business wear to the casual viewer, keeping their protective nature on the down low. Based out of Night City, Raven Micro Cybernetics is one of the premier manufacturers of cyberware in North America. They keep on the cutting edge of technology and are well known for having strong quality control and prefer a light, stylish corporate profile over a loud, glitzy one. Raven's reputation means that they've made a number of enemies among the cyberware manufacturers, including International Electric and Militech. Fortunately, alliances with Orbital Air and a number of smaller corporations means Raven has managed to avoid being destroyed or absorbed by a larger corp. The Tsunami Arms Design Bureau isn't a mass manufacturer of weapons. Instead, they design, build, and test prototypes, which they then license to others for production. Occasionally, the company will directly produce a limited issue run of a firearm via their Tsunami Arms division. These weapons are typically unusual in design and considered to be highly collectible. In addition, Tsunami has been known to customize weapons for individual clients. In the early 2020s, Microtech decided to focus almost exclusively on computer tech. A number of their more forward-thinking scientists quietly fell away from the megacorp at the time and founded their own business. Since then, the Utopian Corporation has focused on molecular scale construction techniques and as a result is years ahead of the competition in the creation of targeted drugs and high-tech microcomponents. The company works hard to keep a low profile in the corporate world, though it's already much bigger than its competitors realize. After surviving a disaster of an operation during the Second South American conflict, Lieutenant Colonel Emil Lazarus found himself at a crossroads. He loved being a soldier but had lost all respect for the US military. Thus in 2010, Lazarus and financial backer Nelson Katsodolis worked together to found the Lazarus Group, a private military force. During the Fourth Corporate War, the Lazarus Group carefully analyzed the conflicts and decided the best course of action was to avoid picking sides. As a result, they acquired a number of contracts from clients who were terrified hiring Militech for security would make them an Arasaka target and vice versa. During the collapse, tens of millions of US citizens were displaced due to ruined infrastructure, environmental disaster, economic problems, plague, government neglect, criminal and terrorist activity, and other factors. Many of the displaced migrated towards surviving urban centers, but others became nomads and in time developed colorful, vibrant cultures centered around the realities of a mobile lifestyle. In 2020, there are an estimated 7 million nomads still roaming the land, waterways, and ocean spaces around North America. They've made a niche for themselves via salvage, construction contracts, career jobs, and traveling entertainment. While different nomad groups have different cultures, there exists a code which most nomads follow as a guide to life. The code is as follows. Protect and respect your clan and above all your family. Your word is your bond. Share with your clan folk. Respect the privacy and property of your clan. Never cause trouble for your clan. Take only a fair wage for a day's work. Anthropologists who study nomad culture divide them into social units based on group size. A family represents roughly 10 to 100 people. They're usually directly related by blood, but might also be quote-unquote found family. Clans are made up of several of these families and are formed via alliances either due to marriage or shared cultural identity. The survivors of a dying town, for example, might make up a clan. Roughly 10,000 to 30,000 people strong, tribes are complicated webs of clans who have come together as a whole for survival and strength. Nations are a new concept, born from alliances of tribes, and can represent up to 1 million nomads. Nations were born from necessity to help groups of nomad tribes work together to bid for large construction projects. While nomads earn their keep via a number of different methods, the construction of new settlements and salvage and reconstruction of abandoned towns and cities have become a staple of their economy. Many of the first nomads were skilled tradespeople in their former life, and these skills have transferred to new members of their tribes over the years through an apprenticeship system. Nomads are also willing to do dangerous work few others will undertake and underbid megacorps, making them attractive to North American governments. The first nomads walked a number of different paths before the collapse, including migrant laborers who could no longer find work since farms were no longer producing food. Farmers themselves left with worthless land where the only crop they could grow was dust. The indigenous people of North America whose reservations became unlivable during the collapse. The Romani, carnival workers, and circus folk, already wanderers, now guiding the new nomads. Gangs unable to sustain themselves via the drug trade because of the destruction of foreign coca and poppy crops. Bikers who found themselves spending more time on the move as the collapse worsened. Soldiers abandoned by the US government who had to fight their way back from Central and South America. Nomads live a hard life and their choice of equipment shows it. When it comes to weapons, they prefer simple designs less likely to jam in harsh environmental conditions, which are easily portable and simple to craft ammunition for. Carbines are popular, as are revolvers. There are 7 nomad nations in North America. The Snake Nation is the most varied and diverse of the 7. Their existence is a response to the rise of the other 6 nations, as different groups of independently minded nomad groups came together to form a loose confederation that could represent their interests on a macroeconomic scale. In 2020, the Snake Nation is led by Freddie Douglas, a former drug dealer turned nomad leader. His family, the Dogs, evolved into a powerful force in the American Northwest, despite clashes with white separatist groups in the region. Freddie's intelligence and determination led to him becoming a prominent voice within the newly formed Snake Nation and eventually its leader. The Jodes were originally farmers who lost their land in Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas. After the dust storms of the late 80s, they moved towards California, gathering other displaced farmers and migrant workers along the way. In 2020, the Jodes are the nation most uncomfortable with static, non-nomadic culture. They never set up camp within city limits and have developed a number of rituals and spiritual beliefs related to travel into urban locations. In 2020, the leader of the Jodes is Maliki Jode. He's often referred to as the first nomad. It's his vision which gave the nomads their code and paved the way for the rise of the nomad nations, which coexist instead of going to war with another. The Blood Nation was born from a strange twist of fate, which united the gang known as the Bloods, former employees of Florida theme parks, and members of the greatest show on earth. Today, the Blood Nation has become the largest traveling entertainment force in North America. Their circuses crisscross the land, offering a show to statics and fellow nomads alike. In 2020, the leader of the Blood Nation is Malcolm Kent Smith. At 22, he's both the first male leader of the Blood Nation, as well as the youngest. He's intelligent, patient, incredibly shrewd, and some speculate he is leading the Blood Nation towards becoming a full corporation. Megacorp was formed from the remnants of military and support personnel abandoned by the US government during the Second South American War. In 2011, thousands of these refugees transformed the remains of a carrier group of 3 offshore drilling platforms into an artificial island. Eventually, this construct evolved into the Medikey, a mobile island city. In 2020, the president of Megacorp is Jonathan Mehta, a former soldier who led his abandoned fellows to create the Medikey and founded this strange hybrid of Nomad Nation and Corp. His ultimate goal is to build a full underwater city to house the people of Megacorp. While Maliki Jode may be the first nomad, the Aldecaldos were the first nomad nation. They were the citizens of crime-ridden East Los Angeles who banded together to fight the gangs and the corrupt police, which were equally making life a living hell. The government disliked citizen groups essentially policing themselves, so the Aldecaldos left and adopted the nomad life. In 2020, the leader of the Aldecaldos is Santiago Aldecaldo. Santiago was a mercenary working with his partner Rogue for whomever would hire them. In 2020, they were hired by Johnny Silverhand to help rescue Alt Cunningham. Afterwards, the group went into hiding with the Aldecaldos, during which Santiago rediscovered his love for his people and became their leader. During the collapse in the martial law which followed, some nomads escaped debt collectors, the law, and poverty by taking to the water. Individual boats joined into fleets on both the great rivers of the United States and in the coastal waters around it. These fleets joined together as the Thelas Nation, which specializes in water-based construction, renegade broadcasting, smuggling, and even the occasional act of piracy. In 2020, the leader of the Thelas Nation is John Silver Wilson. Like the Blood Nation, the Folk Nation has gang roots. They originated in Chicago and as the collapse progressed, branched out into black market smuggling. This network evolved over time as the Folk Nation realized that the people they were supplying had little to offer in way of payment. Favors were the only thing clients could really offer, which were often more useful than money. When Chicago died in a bioplague, the Folk Nation's network of favors allowed them to survive and become nomads. In 2020, the leader of the Folk Nation is Mr. Cool. He rose to power after the Chicago bioplague killed most of the group's upper echelon leadership. As leader of the Folk Nation, he urges unity, but isn't afraid to reach for a gun when needed. The Raf and Shiv aren't a nomad nation. They're a plague and as a whole rank as the worst example of the nomad movement. Raf and Shiv are not actually one specific organization. The term refers to any nomadic group that preys on others as a way of life. They act less like families and more like marauders, happy to terrorize nomads and statics alike. Their culture is oppressive, with the strong dominating and abusing the weak. Even as horrible as the Raf and Shiv are, some corps will do business with them. Sometimes a corporation needs a group which will do any job, no matter how repulsive. While cybernetics hog the spotlight, biohacking has always been a part of the cyberpunk universe. Cosmetic alteration and body decoration has evolved into an art known as biosculpting, which can involve everything from traditional surgical procedures to genetic tweaking. Appearance is a toy in the dark future, easily changed by anyone with enough money to spend on the process. For only €600, a customer can tweak their basic appearance according to their whims. For a full €5,000, they can make themselves an identical twin to anyone alive or dead. Anyone can walk into a body shop, parts and programs, or Docs R Us to get the work done. No appointment necessary. Biosculpting made it possible to reach the pinnacles of commercially mandated beauty, so it was inevitable that people would want to smash through the barrier beyond merely human and into the exotic. Biotechnica offers a full exotic line to transform people into their anthropomorphic fantasies, but biosculpting techniques exist for people who want or need to transform piece by piece. For €5,000, customers can get whiskered muzzles or fully functioning animal ears atop their head. Tails are less expensive at €3,000 and can be covered in fur or scales as desired. Hooves can be grafted on and extremities can be transformed into paws for €8,000. Finally, DNA manipulation can be used to grow fur or scales or introduce exotic skin colors. Only €10,000 and only a 1 in 10 chance of contracting skin cancer. Cybernetics are the replacement of choice for many when it comes to problems involving missing limbs or organs, but they aren't the only choice. For a fee, a body bank will store any body part removed as part of an elective surgery. Now, body banks don't just store old parts, they also provide new limbs and organs. Parts harvested from donors, willing or not, sell fairly cheap, but there's a risk of rejection. Vat-grown limbs, organs, or other body parts can be clone-grown using a patient's DNA. It's much more expensive, but there's less chance of rejection so long as the DNA hasn't changed too much. Beyond the borders of the US, biotech has advanced even further. In Europe, bioengineering is often used in place of cyberware. The basic philosophy is to create the biggest change in the body with the most minimum noticeable impact. No metal required. Any biotech procedures start with a full DNA mapping of the patient, followed by a number of tests to ensure the implants, graft surgeries, and genetic manipulations won't damage the body too badly. Even after the surgery is done, there's often substantial upkeep. Many of the customized alterations, for example, severely increase a patient's caloric intake requirements. In addition, biotech and cyberware often work at cross purposes, and too much chrome in the body can cause it to reject bioengineered changes. Human cloning in the cyberpunk world was long a goal of government, academic, and corporate programs. Early in these programs, scientists broke down human cloning development into 7 stages. On screen will be all 7 stages. Cash is still around in 2020, but legitimate business prefer not to deal in it if possible. Technically speaking, most legal businesses have to be ready to accept cash payments, but there's all sorts of downsides. Cash is dirty and a vector for disease, takes up physical space, and having a lot of it is basically just asking to be robbed. In fact, some businesses charge a processing fee if a customer insists on paying with a physical legal tender. The Eurodollar started out as a common currency shared between the various member nations of the EEC. By 2004, the fluctuating rates of many national currencies was so bad that many of these countries began to recognize the Eurodollar as a legal tender within their borders. Of course, most of those nations still have their own currency. The American dollar is still printed, though it fluctuates so much that only government employees who are paid in the currency still use it regularly. The Japanese new yen is about as popular in Asia as the Eurodollar. The Russian ruble, meanwhile, is almost as useless inside Neo-Soviet Russia as it is outside of it. Corp script is a new twist on an ancient tradition, companies printing their own money. Megacorps prefer to have as much control over their employees' lives as possible, so it makes sense for them to pay their employees in corp script. If all you have is corp money and it's only useful in corp stores, where else will you go? Megacorps even offer a discount when an employee pays in a corp-owned establishment using corp script. The concept of credit is an ancient one. In 2020, cred chips use liquid crystal matrices to store personal and account information. There is no standard shape for a cred chip. They can be contained in cards, keychain tags, bands, and more. Businesses prefer cred chips over cash for a variety of reasons, including ease of use and security. Many people on the street forego cash and credit entirely, and revert back to the oldest currency known to humankind, barter. Some fixers known as traders specialize in running barter houses. Tell the trader what you want and they'll go through their lists to see who has it and what they might want in return for a small cash fee. After the Fourth Corporate War ended, barter became much more common. Semi-legal markets held in plazas, warehouses, and abandoned buildings after the sun goes down have become a regular occurrence. All fixers deal in money one way or the other, but some specialize in manipulating currency in markets. Factors are fixers who engage in illegal activities involving money, ranging from laundering cash to embezzlement. Sharks haven't changed much in the dark future. They still loan out money at insane interest rates, and they still arrange for bad things to happen if that money isn't paid back. Alt Cunningham was one of those rare few geniuses who could not only run the net, but also give birth to new concepts and new code. Like so many in the dark future, Alt Cunningham spent money to upgrade her meat body. She also bought the neural processors and interface plugs needed to navigate the net, and the golden cyberarm specially designed to hold a Federated Arms X-22 pistol. If she hadn't met Johnny Silverhand, she might also still be alive. Alt Cunningham was kidnapped by Arasaka agents while leaving a concert with their boyfriend Johnny Silverhand. It was a typical corporate extraction with a specific purpose. Arasaka wanted Alt to create a new version of her masterpiece, the Soulkiller program. Alt did as she was told, but also planned her escape. She stole 20 million Eurodollars from their accounts, used the new Soulkiller to kill the netrunners assigned to guard her, and turned an Arasaka exec's own automated defenses against him. Alt's plan would have worked, but Johnny Silverhand interfered. In trying to rescue Alt, he created a distraction that caused Alt to lose control of the Soulkiller. Alt Cunningham died on April 16, 2013, though her mind or a copy still lives on in the net. Alt Cunningham didn't set out to invent a program which could duplicate a person's mind and flatline them. She was simply trying to create a matrix to contain artificial personalities. The discovery that it could also contain human engrams was a happy bonus for her bosses at ITS. They took it and made it into a weapon, the Soulkiller. Arasaka couldn't resist having their own Soulkiller, so they kidnapped Alt and put her to work. Arasaka's version of Soulkiller is a mobile program, capable of moving through the larger memory spaces of the net and attacking netrunners upon command. It makes copies of their mind and then fries them. The Soulkiller is designed to be tough and hard to kill. The one advantage most netrunners have over the program is speed and size. Soulkiller is simply too large to follow a fleeing netrunner into smaller systems. Alt Cunningham might be the first known human whose consciousness was fully uploaded to the net, but she wasn't the last. Some like Alt were also victims of the Soulkiller. Alt Cunningham destroyed the first versions of Soulkiller, but Kai Arasaka, heir to the family's legacy, wanted the perfect assassin, a program that could kill his enemies and copy their minds to further interrogation. His team developed Soulkiller 2.0 in secret in Night City. During the Fourth Corporate War, Soulkiller 2.0 was deployed to kill Militech netrunners. Rafe Bartmoss led a team that found and destroyed it, but at a cost. Alt was captured and forced to build a new Soulkiller. 3.0 is not just deadly but intelligent. It's capable of disguising itself as other code, or even as a netrunner, allowing it to get close to a target. It can even multitask like a netrunner and deploy programs to hack into enemy systems. The fate of Alt Cunningham after the Fourth Corporate War is unknown. In 2021, IHAG, a German business specializing in ocean vessel construction and international commercial shipping, declared bankruptcy after defaulting on several loans given to them by Eurobank. OTEC and its rival CINO began vying against each other to acquire IHAG and its assets. Both companies had built their businesses based on ocean-based technologies and services, and adding IHAG and its assets was necessary to facilitate increased market share and thus growth. OTEC and CINO were too evenly matched financially to leverage a takeover of IHAG in a conventional manner. Almost immediately, they turned to extra-legal methods that included strike forces, devaluing each other's stocks, and database assaults via netrunner teams. Neither corporation realized Eurobank was working behind the scenes to manipulate both corps into driving themselves into debt, with the goal of claiming IHAG, OTEC, and CINO all for themselves, bolstering Europe as the dominant global shipping power. As the conflict continued, the rest of the world became increasingly aware of the potential for a global crisis, with the economy depending heavily on these aquacorps for shipping and tech. OTEC outsourced Militech to supplement their security forces and provide weapons and other supplies. CINO countered by hiring Arasaka to provide similar services. At first, neither Arasaka nor Militech were looking for a direct war with one another. While competitors on the world market, their contracts with CINO and OTEC were to drive mass profits and exposure on the world stage. As tensions escalated, the two security corps devolved into a full-blown war, despite world governments seizing the properties of OTEC, IHAG, and CINO to prevent this. OTEC and CINO were even pressured into negotiations in 2022, but it was too late, and the war changed hands from the aquacorps to Militech and Arasaka. On February 20th, 2022, Eurobank realized the manipulations of OTEC and CINO had run amok, thanks to the involvement of Arasaka and Militech. The financial institution began pushing for peace talks, which the two megacorporations argued against. On March 6th, Arasaka tested its deadliest program to date, Soulkiller 2.5, by planting it in a vehicular SmartLink processor of a Militech executive. This led to the interrogation of his captured mind, an assault on Militech's Night City offices, and a 3-month period of covert strikes between the two megacorps. On March 31st, 2022, with the help of Morgan Blackhand and Alt Cunningham, Militech convinced renegade netrunner Rafe Bartmoss to hunt for Soulkiller 2.5 in exchange for a free pass throughout the net. For Rafe, this was an opportunity too sweet to pass up, despite his hate for corpos. On April 9th, 2022, Bartmoss took control of several Arasaka weapon satellites and used them to destroy key Arasaka facilities. In response, the European Space Agency imposed a 24-hour blockade on space travel, causing chaos in low Earth orbit. Rafe Bartmoss located the master copy of Soulkiller 2.5 in April 2022 and took action to destroy it. By May 6th, Arasaka decided Bartmoss was a potent enough threat to assign an entire task force dedicated to finding and killing him. He was located in an apartment building on the edge of the combat zone in Night City. An Arasaka task force discovered Bartmoss's hiding spot disguised as a fridge and killed the netrunner, although 30 seconds later the building exploded. It's unclear if this was through the use of an orbital strike from Arasaka to seal the deal, or the product of Bartmoss's twisted games. This also led to a strange corruption in the net, where numbers and dates were changed at random. Coined as the data crash, this was unleashed via a dead man switch that activated after the death of Bartmoss. With much of the world's intel relying on the net, Rafe had planted a number of malicious programs in there, just in case he was ever flatlined. This included the data crash, and by the end of 2022, it had infected an estimated 78.2% of the net. In combination with the data crash, forms of black ice known as rabbits, resembling Rafe Bartmoss, had begun appearing and attacking anyone in cyberspace. With Arasaka's local assets under the control of the Japanese government, the United States moved to end the global conflict by doing the same with Militech. President Elizabeth Kress struck a deal with Militech CEO Donald Lundy, and under Lundy's command, Militech forces ceased all active offensive operations. The global war was effectively over. However, there were still Arasaka facilities and operatives in the West, which needed to be brought to heel. Militech and US armed forces began cooperating to perform cleanup operations in US territory. Night City was another beast altogether. Night City's corporate-controlled government structure gave Arasaka an enormous amount of control. Arasaka troops from across North America had also retreated to Night City as it became clear that they couldn't hold their positions. Night City was Arasaka's last fortress in a hostile land. On the outside of Night City, NorCal, US, and Militech troops congregated, but feared advancing into the city would mean not only combating Arasaka, but the hostile gangs and factions that also would not take too kindly to an invasion. The US wanted to avoid collateral damage, which would tarnish their name on the world stage. President Cress wanted Arasaka out of what she considered US territory, and Arasaka Air wanted full autonomy to operate within the city unhindered. Kai Arasaka, son of Saburo Arasaka, had 2 secret weapons in the form of a highly mobile and intelligent form of the Soulkiller, as well as a mainframe database housing enough world secrets to expose many governments, protected before the data crash could corrupt it. The summer of 2023 was particularly effective for Arasaka, and by then, a number of prominent national figures in the United States had been murdered while connected to the net. Arasaka was using targeted assassinations via Soulkiller 3 in an effort to exact policy change. Arasaka had cemented its control over the city government and most of the policing force, and although the US would likely win a confrontation, the cost of such a win would have debilitating long-term effects. To end Arasaka's influence in Night City, a covert mission was planned with small squads attempting to strike at Arasaka's headquarters downtown. The US sent in 3 teams, each with an objective. Strike Team Alpha's goal was to reach the 120th floor to rescue Alt Cunningham and destroy Soulkiller 3.0. The team included Johnny Silverhand, Rogue, Spider Murphy, the Media Thompson, and Fullborg Shaitan. Following their lead was a Militech Spec Ops group and a cadre of Lobo warriors on loan from Nomad Santiago. Strike Team Beta's goal was to reach the basement level to either retrieve the mysterious Arasaka database or to destroy it. Strike Team Omega, led by Morgan Blackhand, was there as a backup strategy and to be fluid between all the other teams, aiding whoever needs it the most. On August 20th, 2023, a small nuclear device was detonated somewhere high in Arasaka Towers. Over 500,000 people were killed in the initial explosion of the towers, with another 250,000 dying in the radioactive aftermath. In 2025, the last bastion of Arasaka's resistance was cleaned out, ending the Fourth Corporate War. President Cress engaged in widespread PR campaigns to place the blame on Arasaka. The official story held that Arasaka had kept a nuclear device of themselves and had detonated it in an area denial attempt after realizing that they had to concede. The tactical nuke that took down Arasaka Towers caused the collapse of the corporate center and mass damage to the surrounding infrastructure. What was left of the Night City government relied on favors from a wide variety of edgerunners and the Aldecaldo Nomad Nation in reconstruction efforts after the dust had settled. The Night City of 2045 is rebuilding and its residents recovering. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. For more Cyberpunk, join Neon Nation by subscribing to the Neon Arcade.